Welcome. So today is our move into stillness meeting, and see that our attendance has returned to the usual. It was strange last week. We had quite a show up. So today we'll be exploring some movements, continuing in our, it's a sequence of explorations that we're doing week by week. So we're kind of leading up to possibly doing some, at least some variation on Hannah's lessons from the book Somatics. But I know that people have had some challenges even getting into the starting positions for those. So we're doing some explorations that are valuable in and of themselves and also preparatory so that we can do those other explorations with greater ease and confidence. So today we're going to be primarily lying on the back. We'll also be doing some sitting up, and I see the comment that last week's movement was helpful. I'm happy to hear that. That's the intention, so that's good. You should find that this week's exploration is also helpful, and it will be a continuation of some of the same, opening up some of the same parts of the body. So so let's start by lying on the back. So you want to be lying on a surface that is flat and firm as is reasonably comfortable for you, within reason. In general, if you can have some padding, that will be better, even if you're one of those people who wants to just, go hard or go home kind of thing. You'd have a little bit of padding. So a carpeted floor or a rug on the floor or a yoga mat. These are all good options. Or if you find that's not enough padding, you can increase the padding. If you need to do it in bed on a mattress, then that's acceptable. In fact, if you need to do it in bed on a mattress, then that's what you should do. So, however, if you can reasonably do it not in bed on a mattress, that would be probably better, because the mattress is generally going to be too soft. So go ahead and lie down on your back, and as you do so, do it with awareness rather than just flinging yourself into the position. And maybe it's too late for that, but that's okay. So don't chastise yourself for that. Just notice that you can remember in the future to move with awareness, so that you can make the most of every moment, so that every moment of your life really could be an exploration of greater ease, greater harmony, greater peace, and greater confidence and strength and coordination. So once you're on your back, then we're going to bend the knees, and here too, do it in a way that is with awareness, so that you don't unnecessarily strain in order to do this. So you're going to be bringing the knees so that they're bent, and the knees will be in the direction of the ceiling, which is forward relative to your somatic sense. And your feet will be flat on the soles of the feet will be flat on the surface that you're lying on, near to the buttocks. So similar to what we did last week. And so you want to find what is the placement of the feet. A lot of variables. Last week we talked about you could move the feet forward, not forward, but further away or closer to the buttocks, or you could move them further apart or closer together. You can also be aware of how the feet are angled. So are they straight? If you were to draw a line, imaginary line down your midline from your nose to your belly button down through the pelvic floor, would your feet be parallel to that imaginary line, or would they be turned out? Would they be turned in? And you can play around with that a little bit and see what is most comfortable. In general, we're going to probably be aiming more for something closer to parallel, but you see what works best for you. So just tips in general, a little closer to the buttocks, a little wider, and more or less parallel is likely to give you the best results, but you see what's best for you today. And then see that you can allow yourself to actually be restful here, because if you're already straining before we've even begun the movement, then you're not really setting yourself up for maximum success. So just see that you can allow the body to be as restful as possible. So as much of your body that can be in contact with the surface that you're resting on, that's probably going to be helpful. So for example, you can notice the contact that your back is making with the surface you're lying on. So it's actually, in truth, it's an infinite surface. If you really consider that didn't think we were going to get metaphysical today, but here you go. Your back is an infinite surface. So how could that be? You'd say it seems finite to me, but really consider that you could zoom in your awareness on your sense of the back, and you notice that that surface has all of these kind of like little wrinkles, and you could let them smooth out. So then there's more surface area in contact with the surface you're resting on. And then you could zoom in even more with your awareness and notice, well, there's still some bits that are kind of wrinkled up a little bit, and you could let those smooth out so that you're really letting the back spread, rest, relax, make contact, because the more contact you're making with that surface, the more support you have. It's just a basic fact. So the more you allow that contact, the better. So there's the infinite surface of your back, and then there's also, you can be aware of the bones of your body. So for example, be aware of your spine. So the spine starts all the way up at the skull and then extends all the way down to the tailbone. And so you've got this very long spine. It's probably longer than you think. And you can be aware, now, of course, there's some natural curvature to the spine, but here in this position, how much strain and effort are you making to try and maintain some of that curvature artificially, and how much could you just let that go and let your spine relax? You might be surprised that much more of your spine could come to rest than is presently happening. Now, with all of this, you should never force anything. So if you force or strain, it's counterproductive, but it's just an awareness game. So you just notice how much you can allow. And then, of course, bring your awareness to the legs. So let the feet, your soles of your feet, are also infinite surfaces. So you can play the same game with the soles of your feet that you did with your back. So let the soles of the feet really spread and relax, so that that infinite surface of the sole of the foot is making contact infinitely with that surface that it's resting on. So you can really receive that support. You almost like can feel that there's this two-way transaction or exchange going on, where there's energy being released through that sole of the foot downward, and then there's energy that's being drawn up through the sole of the foot, both at the same time. So that there's this connection there, that it's both passive and active at the same time, and you can feel that active quality that you're not doing, but that is engaging and supporting your body, keeping your feet gently anchored and secured, stable. And then you can allow from the knee all the way down to the foot, all of that lower leg, let that just go. Let it relax downward so that you can feel that whole lower leg, really the energy of it just moving downward through the sole of the foot so that you're not making unnecessary muscular effort to do anything with the lower leg. And then you can be aware from the knee to the hips, or the femur bone of the thighs, be aware that you can let that bone sink into the hip socket so that you're not making unnecessary effort to do anything there either. So now your legs are well supported and stable. Your back is well supported. Let your back of your neck relax. Let your forehead relax. Make sure your shoulders are just relaxed. The arms can just be at the sides. If that's uncomfortable for any reason, you can fold the hands across the abdomen or however is most comfortable for you. And now just notice your breath. So just let the breath be relaxed. Let the breath be gentle and yet satisfying. So you're not needing to take big, artificially big breaths. Should be non-strenuous, but at the same time, there should be a satisfying movement and air exchange. Okay, so now remember that at any time, if you need to rest even more, if you need to ever straighten the legs or make some adjustment, you are welcome to do that. First things first, though, just check to make sure that you can't just let go of something. So the way that it works is you notice, oh, I'm straining, oh, it's seems difficult. Then you just pause and notice, what could you let go of? Could you surrender more and still allow yourself to remain in this position in a restful way? If so, wonderful. And if not, that's okay. Then you just do what you need to do, because you shouldn't be straining. That wouldn't be useful. So now what we're going to do is we're going to explore some movements of the arm and the torso. So what I'd like you to do is you're going to start with your dominant arm. So from the majority, that will be your right arm. But if you happen to be left-handed, you'll just do it with your left, unless you prefer to do it with your right. But I suggest you start with your dominant hand, and you're gonna slide your dominant hand out to the side. So so that it makes kind of like an almost 90 degrees if possible. It's going to remain on the surface that you're on. And you're going to just let the arm rest out at your side there. Now, if that's uncomfortable for you, then you don't need to bring it out to 90 degrees. You just find what angle is comfortable for you. So that might be 45, 60, whatever. But if you can comfortably reach the arm out along the surface you're on, so it's still on the surface, but at about 90 degrees from the torso, with the palm up, then just do that. And then I'd like you to just roll the head over to look at that hand. So you're going to move the head and the eyes. And you're going to look at that hand. And then I'd like you to see if you can continue to watch the hand. So this is going to mean I'm going to give you an instruction to move the hand and arm, but you're going to keep your eyes on that hand. And that means that you're going to be moving the eyes and the head coordinated with the movement of the arm and hand. So you're looking at that hand, make sure that you're relaxing. So just let everything be soft, let the jaw relax. Don't strain anything. If you find it strenuous, then just see what you can let go of. And if that doesn't work, then just ease up. You go back to, if you need to put the head so that you're looking to the ceiling again, that's fine. Now you're going to, assuming that you're looking at the hand, you're going to imagine before you do the movement. So don't do the movement yet, but you're going to imagine that you're moving the hand in an arc so that the hand is going to start obviously where it is, and then it's eventually going to be directly in front of you toward the ceiling. So you're gonna make this movement in an arc so that the arm remains straight, not rigid, but straight yet relaxed through that arc. And you're going to watch that hand as you do it. So the head and eyes are going to move in a coordinated fashion with the arm and hand. So imagine that so that you can get some clarity on how you will do that. And then you're going to inhale. So just naturally, when you inhale. Should just be gentle and natural, nothing artificial or strained. And then when you next exhale, I'd like you to coordinate the movement, and I'd like you to make that movement. So you're going to move the arm and hand, and you're going to watch that with your eyes. And so the hand ends up in front of you in the direction of the ceiling. Arm remains straight, but not rigid. So if that's a reasonable movement for you to do, if that's not too strenuous. Obviously, if that's too strenuous, then you needn't do it. In that case, you just rest, and you can join in the next movement when we get to it. But if that's a movement that's realistic for you to do, then do that movement a few times. So you're going to you're going to lower the arm, reversing the movement you just did, watching it with your eyes and head, and then you'll lift it again. And if possible, you'll coordinate that with the breath. So you'll inhale as you lower the arm, and you'll exhale as you raise the arm. And remember the principles of the successful movement is that you want to move slowly with awareness. So there's no benefit in just flinging yourself around. And remember also that you don't have to do the whole movement. If that whole range seems too difficult, then you do less. Maybe you find that you can relatively easy, have the arm upright or in front of you toward the ceiling, and then you can lower it a little bit, but too much is strenuous. So then you don't lower it all the way. You just make a smaller range of movement, and that's fine. In fact, that's important that you honor that, because that's how you will discover the greater ease. And particularly as you're lowering the arm, this is all the stages should be done with awareness, but particularly the stage where you're lowering the arm, this you want to do with particular slowness and awareness, because this is at least for part of the body, this is appendiculation. So bring particular awareness to that. And our ideal goal in the long run is that it's a smooth, continuous, comfortable, confident movement. But in these early stages, if you're doing it correctly, it will not be smooth and it will not be confident. You'll experience choppiness and lack of confidence in the movement. So that's how you'll know that you're doing it successfully. Because if you're doing it quickly, then it will seem like it's smooth, but it's really just done with momentum. Okay, so when you next bring the arm down, you just let it rest there for a moment. And now, what we're going to do is I'd like you to roll the head back to center, so you're facing forward toward the ceiling. And what we're going to do this time is we're going to move the we're going to do the same movement, except we're going to move the head and eyes and the arm in a different coordination. So instead of moving them together, we're going to move them opposite. That is, as you lift the arm, you're going to turn the head in the direction that the arm is coming from. And then as you lower the arm, you're going to roll the head back to center. So don't do that yet, but I want you to first imagine it. And we're going to add one more thing here, which is, as you're doing it, I'd like you to also imagine that you're reaching through that whole range with your hand. So don't make it overly strenuous, but just add a little bit, just a little bit. There's going to be a little bit of effort here because you're reaching now, not just for something just slightly beyond your otherwise comfortable range. But you imagine that there's something that's just an inch further away than what the arc that you were doing previously, and you want to be able to reach that. So just see, how do you do that? I want you to imagine that first and notice what part of you has to move or release in order to allow for you to reach in that way. So that's an interesting thing, isn't it? That you can actually move your arm further away from your torso. How do you accomplish that? And obviously something has to let go. So see if you can figure that out. And then now that you've imagined it, I'd like you to now do the movement. So remember that if it's overly strenuous at any point, you modify it or you just rest. So you're reaching just like an inch further through the entire range. And you're moving the head in the opposite coordination from the previous movements. The head rolls to the side as the arm lifts, and then as the arm lowers, the head rolls back to center. And just do that, let's say 3 or 4 times. See, how can you let it be easier each time? Tendency is for us to make it harder each time because we start having this wrong idea that, oh, I'm getting tired, I'm fatiguing myself, I have to try harder, it's going to just keep getting harder and harder. But see that that's not true. Well, it certainly doesn't have to be true. It could be true because you could do that to yourself, but you could let it be easier and easier each time so that your arm is getting lighter each time. It's like maybe that thing you're reaching for, actually, now you could imagine that thing, whatever that is, it's actually got hold of your hand and it's doing the work, lifting the arm and lowering the arm so that your arm, it becomes lighter for you. And when you next bring the arm down, just rest. Okay, so this time, what we're going to do is we're going to bring and now you're not going to do the movement yet. I'm just going to describe it. So you rest, but I want you to imagine the movement as I describe it. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to again lift the arm, and so that it's directly in front toward the ceiling, and you'll this again. You're going to watch the hand throughout the movement. So you're going to coordinate the movement so that they're moving together, the head and the arm. And in this movement, you're just lifting the arm. In this case, is just the first. It's just preparatory. And then that's the starting position, is with the arm in front. And now what we're going to do is we're going to move the arm and the head in the opposite direction. So across the body, across the torso. And you're only going to do that as far as you can do, which will be however far that is. So just imagine that. And as you imagine it, think again about reaching, or if you find it helpful, that there's actually something that's gently drawing your hand or pulling your hand, so that you don't have to make so much effort, but just allow that to occur. So imagine that, because here you have to allow for that, what had to release earlier in order to do the reaching, that has to release even more. So if you haven't figured that out yet, I'll let you know. It's the shoulder blade. So the shoulder blade needs to be able to slide off of the back. So we have muscles that connect the shoulder blade to the back. And we need to be able to allow for, a lot of the time, those muscles become very tight. So we develop sensory motor amnesia there. And so we don't know how to reach, we don't know how to move our shoulder, move our arm, neck becomes stiff, chest becomes stiff. So we need to be able to allow for the shoulder blade to slide, and that means those muscles have to learn how to, again, lengthen and coordinate. So you need to be able to sense and feel that shoulder blade is able to slide off the back. So some of those connections are to the spine. So I want you to imagine the shoulder blade moving away from the spine. And notice how, when the shoulder blade moves away from the spine, this is all just in your imagination, but notice how that allows for the arm to then reach further across the body, across the chest. Okay, so now I want you to actually do the movement. So you've imagined it, and now I want you to do that movement. So you're going to, with awareness, bring the arm so that it's forward toward the ceiling, and you're going to keep your eyes on the hand. Just find a point there on the hand, and you just watch that and let the eyes and the head move as you reach the arm across the body. So if you're moving your right arm, you're moving the arm in this arc toward the left. If you're moving your left arm, you'd be moving it in an arc toward the right. And the movement is going to be as far across the body as is comfortable and confident, to the end range of that. Shouldn't be straining, but to that end range for you, whatever that is, and then back to forward. So you're not going to go all the way back to this original starting position. You're going to just come back to forward, or in front of you, toward the ceiling. And you're going to repeat that movement several times. So 3-4 times. And if you can coordinate it with the breath, that would be excellent, so that you're exhaling as you move the arm across, and then you inhale as you bring the arm forward. And see that you can really allow for the movement to happen from the shoulder. It's not really the arm doing the movement, if you think about it. So it's really coming from primarily from the back. So you want to allow for that free movement of the shoulder. And it's okay if it's a very small movement. Remember that you want to, one of those principles that kind of, it's one of those principles that shows up in all things. So we've heard it in other meetings, is that you have to start where you are. If you're trying to start somewhere else, then it won't work. So we often have an idea, oh, I should be able to do this. It would be better if I had a bigger range of motion. And then we use force and momentum and violence, and we actually compound the very problem rather than doing anything to help ourselves. So it's if you only can move 5 degrees, then only move 5 degrees, but do it with awareness. Oh, and one more thing here is, now notice that because we're moving across the body, so now the movement is happening from the back rather than from the front, which means the pandiculation, which is the phase we want to be particularly aware of, is actually as we're reaching the arm across the body. So I want to be particularly aware of that. And then when you've completed that to your satisfaction, you can lower the arm in whatever way is comfortable for you. It could be all the way back to the other side. It could be down towards your waist, towards your hips, whatever's comfortable for you. But you're going to just rest for a moment. And remember, it's up to you to be gentle and kind to yourself. So it's really important that you don't make the mistake of thinking, oh, I should force myself to do this, even if actually intuitively you know that you should just rest instead of trying to do something that's you're not presently ready for. So remember that, very important. Okay, so we're going to do another one of these movements with the same arm. I'm going to describe it first so you can imagine it. So you're not going to do the movement yet. You're going to just imagine it, and then I'll tell you when you're going to do it. So this time we're going to do basically the same movement we just did. So that should make it kind of easy to imagine. But what we're going to do is we're going to reach the opposite hand across the chest, and we're going to see if it's possible for us to get our fingertips of that opposite hand underneath and behind the other arm, so that we can feel the shoulder blade. So that is, if your dominant hand is the right hand, you're going to be moving that arm as before, but you're going to take your left hand and you're going to reach it across the chest underneath the right arm and behind, so that you can feel the shoulder blade. And you're going to see if that's possible for you. If that's not possible, then see what you can do. Just see where you can reach without it being strenuous. If you can reach there, then you'll find, wow, there's a whole lot there that I could. It's quite a big area, actually. So then you might wonder, well, what should I be feeling for? Where should I place my hand? And you can relax and not stress about it, because this isn't like that where you have to worry about getting a good grade only if you get exactly the right answer. The correct answer is that this is an exploration for your own benefit, learning about yourself. So you'll be free to explore this many times, and you can place the hand in different locations to learn different things. So just find one area. So that shoulder, if you can reach the shoulder blade, then you just touch whatever you think is the shoulder blade, wherever you feel that, so that you can start to become aware of the size and shape and location of the shoulder blade, which presently you don't have a lot of awareness of. So whatever you find will be informative. Okay, so you hopefully have imagined that. And now I'd like you to do it. So the same movement that we just did, with the addition of the other hand, the opposite hand, reaching across, under, and behind the other arm so that you can feel the shoulder blade. And so the starting position of the dominant hand is going to be forward toward the ceiling. And you're going to reach the other hand and see what you can feel. And then when you're ready, I'd like you to do that movement. So same movement we did before, where the dominant hand is now reaching across as if trying to reach toward the surface you're resting on the opposite side. Now, of course, you might say, oh, I'd never reach there. But that's just kind of the general direction. And you see now, as you're doing this movement with the hand placed there, what do you discover? What are you able to notice? What can you let go of? What can you soften? How much more can you allow for the shoulder blade to release, and allow for that arm to move, because the shoulder blade is able to release more? So you're going to just repeat that movement several times, 3, 4 times. So just across, and then back to forward toward the ceiling, and then across and back toward the ceiling. And you might even, as you're doing it, because you're learning more, you might find, oh, I'm sensing something there, and you might move your fingers, if you can reach, to be able to touch what you're aware of. Maybe you feel something that seems like it's a little, like it's pulling a little, or like it's not, or maybe you feel something that kind of clicks or pops or something, and it's tender maybe, and you just bring your fingers, if you can, to that area and see what does that help you with. Because when you put the fingers there, remember, your sensory motor homunculus in the brain has a very large portion of it representing the hands, because the hands are very sensitive, give us a lot of information, so you can get really fast and powerful shifts and dawning of somatic awareness by just placing the hands where you have some sensation as you're doing the movement. So you're welcome to move the fingers a little bit, see what that helps you with, because that you should find that that helps you tremendously. It's sort of like magic. Or I guess we could just say it is magic. And when you experience it, which I hope you're experiencing, you'll know what I'm talking about. So it honestly is magic. You will discover that things that you've been struggling with for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, sometimes longer, can become clear in your awareness and can release. And you can discover greater ease in moments in this way. And then when you're satisfied with that, again, come to a resting position. And just notice the probably significant difference between the two sides of the body. Now, notice this also. So, do you feel anything in your in the abdomen? Now, you kind of have to remember back to what you were just doing, but just do, can you remember any sensation in the abdomen? So there's now this whole body is participating in this movement. So there's the shoulder has to release, but then there's also a twisting, somewhat subtle, but nonetheless some twisting in the torso. So the whole spine is actually twisting a little bit, and that's coordinated by the musculature of the abdomen. So maybe you start to sense that. So now that you have that to consider, I want you to imagine we're going to do exactly the same movement that you just did. Everything about it will be, in terms of instruction, will be the same. But I want you to, before we do the movement, I want you to imagine now that what it's going to be like when you are aware of that twisting of the torso. So there has to be a whole coordinated movement. It can't be any one thing, but you have to allow for the shoulder to release, and you have to allow for the spine to do this twist. And then you start to find that there's this whole body participating in this movement. So imagine that. And then when you're ready, I want you to go ahead and do that movement. So just exactly the same instruction as what we just did, but this time with the awareness of the whole coordinated movement. And so notice as you are reaching across, where do you feel the movement in the spine and in the abdomen? And then when you come back to center, that is with the arm forward, be sure that you fully relax and release the abdomen. And it will be helpful to coordinate the breathing with the movement. So remember, as you're reaching across, you're exhaling. And as you come back to center, you inhale. And you may find that at least initially, you might find it helpful just to pause for one breath cycle in the upright or the center position, so that you can really be aware and relax the abdomen. So remember, it's a whole coordinated movement. You have to allow that shoulder to release. And you have to allow for the abdomen. And here, the abdomen is not just the middle of the rectus abdominis, the six pack. It's also the obliques and the transverse abdominis, which are on the sides and wrap around. toward the back. So be aware of the whole of that whole, all of the abdominal region, and see how that's all coordinated in the movement. It's not just that, it's also the spinal muscles, but see that you can really let it all relax when you come back to the middle, to the center. And when you feel satisfied with that, you can come back to rest. Let everything rest on the surface you're on. So maybe you find that you're reaching across further. Yeah, the left, the non-dominant hand is still, we're still keeping the non-dominant hand under the dominant arms, under the dominant arm, and feeling the shoulder blade, if possible. I mean, not while you're resting, you needn't while you're resting, but otherwise. Okay, so now let's do I think just one more variation here, which is, so I'll describe it and you can imagine it and then we'll do it. So just imagining it now as I describe it. We're going to again bring the dominant arm, or the arm that we've been moving, into the same starting position we've been using for the previous few movements, that is forward toward the ceiling. And you're going to again bring the non-dominant hand under the dominant arm, reach around and feel the shoulder blade. And this time, what we're going to do is you're going to rotate the torso. So you're going to let that shoulder blade just remain released throughout. And so it's like you're just gently reaching forward. And then you're going to rotate the torso just as much as is comfortable for you in the direction of the dominant arm. That is, if you're right-handed, you're going to roll the torso toward the right. So in the opposite direction of what we were just doing. So the arm is going to remain in the same position throughout relative to the torso, but just the torso is going to roll as much as is comfortable. So it's probably going to be a very small movement. So just imagine that. So you know more or less now what that starting position is like, because you've done that several times. And you've now explored rotating or rolling the torso in the other direction, but now what about in this direction? So can you imagine that? And when you're ready, go ahead and try that out. And let it be don't let it be gentle and a small movement. Don't think you have to try. You're definitely not going to bring that dominant arm back down to the floor. Forget about that. It's very small. It could be a 1 degree arc, it could be a 5 degree arc maybe, but it's small. And you're going to coordinate it with the breath if possible, so that you're exhaling as you rotate, inhaling as you come back to center. So as you're doing this, just notice how do you do this movement with how do you do that rotation? Probably kind of the opposite of how you did the other rotation. And notice, do you have any habit of unnecessary movement in the shoulder? So the shoulder doesn't need to be involved in this movement. And in fact, this movement can help clarify that the shoulder can really release even more. But do you have a habit maybe of doing something in that shoulder? So you want to just allow for that to release rather than doing it, if you find that there's a habit there at all. There may or may not be. And when you feel satisfied with that, you can come to rest again. So I said that was going to be the last variation, but there's actually one more I'd like to do. So now I'll describe it, and you will just imagine it, and then and then you can do it after that. So the movement will be that you're going to again bring your dominant arm out to the side at 90 degrees, or whatever you were able to do before, so that it will be on the floor still, or the surface that you're on. And you're going to rotate the head, or roll the head in the opposite direction as far as is comfortable. So nothing strenuous. So if you're right-handed, your right arm will be out at this side on the surface you're resting on, and your head will roll to the left. And the movement then is going to be that you're going to bring that right arm you're going to do the complete arc as much as is comfortable for you. And you have an option here. I don't care. You keep the other arm on the floor, or you can bring it around under the shoulder blade, whatever you prefer. It doesn't matter to me. So you have an option there. But you're going to bring the dominant arm in that complete arc, that is from the floor toward the ceiling, and then reaching across the body. And as you do that, you're going to rotate or roll the head in the opposite direction. So if you're right-handed, you're going to bring the right arm toward the ceiling and then across to the left. And at the same time, you're going to roll the head to the right. And then you'll reverse that, and you'll repeat that several times, only in the range that's comfortable for you. So now that you've imagined that, when you're ready, go ahead and do that movement. And then when you feel satisfied with that, you can come back to rest. And we're going to finish today with one more movement, which we'll do sitting. So don't sit yet. First, I want you to imagine how you will come to sit. so that you can do that in the best way. And almost certainly that's going to involve you rolling to the side and pressing, using your hands to help press yourself up. So imagine how you might do that. And then if you are comfortable sitting on the floor or whatever you're sitting on, then you may do that. And if you prefer to sit in a chair, that's fine. So when you're ready, go ahead and find your way as comfortably as possible to a sitting position that works for you. And really do it with awareness so that you can particularly be aware of the whole body, but particularly be aware of your dominant arm and the neck and head and the shoulder, so that you don't go into your habitual patterns. So when you are ready, when you're seated, and there's no rush, so don't feel any rush. This movement will be very simple. So if you hear the instructions and then you don't get to sitting for another minute, you'll remember and you can do it. Don't rush, no stress. So as we've been doing, I'll describe to you the movement and you'll imagine it, and then you'll do the movement afterwards. So this movement so we've done all of this to help with the release of the shoulder, both on the front side and the back side. So help to open up some of the release and lengthen some of the pectoral muscles and some of the muscles on the back side. So probably lower trapezius and rhomboids and probably some of the latissimus dorsi. But the shoulder being so complex also has all these attachments that go up into the neck. And so a lot of the time those are very tight, like the upper trapezius, for example. And so now that we've done all that other work, we don't have as much working to kind of keep this kind of deadlock in which the upper trapezius has no choice basically but to stay tense. So we're in a very good position now to be able to release that upper trapezius in a fairly simple and direct way. So I want you to imagine you're going to reach the non-dominant hand across the body, and you're going to hook it on the upper portion of the shoulder where it connects into the neck. So you will, if you can hook it around back, you're just imagining this, you're not doing it yet, but you would feel there this big, strong muscle, the upper trapezius. I mean, the trapezius is a whole muscle, but we're going to be feeling the upper portion of it. And chances are that is probably tighter than it needs to be. So when you reach across, what you will likely feel is some tension in that muscle. And what we're going to, then the movement will be that you're simply going to shrug the shoulder, and then you're going to slowly release the shoulder. So with the hand placed there. So that's a very simple movement. So now that you've imagined it, go ahead and do that. So you're going to reach the non-dominant hand across to the opposite side and hook it on the upper portion of the shoulder where it connects to the neck, so you can feel that big muscle there toward the back side of the shoulder that connects into the neck. And you're going to just then slowly shrug that shoulder. So if you're right-handed, that means the right shoulder. And then slowly, 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 slowly release. And really importantly, don't pull the shoulder down. Just let it release. And you'll find it can actually release a lot more than you think. And then repeat that a few more times. And also remember, slow, slow, slow. And you'll find when you do it slowly enough, it's going to be choppy and you're going to think, I feel very uncoordinated. And that's good. That means that you're discovering, revealing that sensory motor amnesia, and you're shining that light of awareness, which is it's the healing balm. So you should find that it releases quite substantially. So after all of that, I certainly hope that that side of your body feels something. I hope that side of your body feels fantastic, but at the very least, you should feel something. It should feel different. So now, of course, you probably will feel lopsided and twisted, and everything's going to feel really strange. So you're going to want to repeat this on the opposite side. But we really needed to take all this time on the one side to go through the whole sequence to be able to get all that clarity. So when for those who are here live, you'll probably want to do it with the recording, which I'll have available later. It will be on YouTube later today. And for those who are listening to the recording, then you just play it back and do it on the opposite side. And you might, as usual, you may find that the old patterns reassert themselves. So you can repeat the lesson many times. Once you get the hang of it, you don't need to do the whole hour. You can do a shortened version of it. But initially, doing the whole hour is helpful because it gives you that clarity. So my recommendation is do it. You could do once you get the hang of it, you could do this lesson once a day, and you could do it in 10-15 minutes. And as usual, remember that many things can happen when we reawaken our somatic awareness. So we become aware of whatever is there, and sometimes through that awareness, we are able to sufficiently release whatever is there so that we can experience that ease and pleasure. Sometimes, of course, what happens is we release just enough that the underlying discomfort is now very much in our awareness. And so you need to have the right understanding, because if you have the wrong understanding, you'll freak out about it. If you have the right understanding, you understand that what you're aware of in that case is just that you've had this sensory motor amnesia for probably a long time. And those muscles that are chronically tense are fatigued. They're producing lactic acid, so there's soreness. That soreness can be, in some cases, very intense. And so don't freak out about it. Know that you've done something really wonderful. And if you continue and repeat the lesson with adequate awareness, you will eventually release all of that, and your life will be much, much better as a result. So always have that awareness. And of course, if you need anything, if you have doubts, concerns, questions, or anything else, you can always reach out. So that's it for today. Thank you, everybody, for joining me, and blessings to you all. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.